Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to make a forever copper and metal candle, heater, or stove, whatever you need it for an emergency, whether you're going on a camping trip, you just want something that's really inexpensive and that works really well. This greenhouse is about 300 square feet, so in the wintertime the walls are very thin and I need to heat it. So this little device will heat this very comfortably to around 65 to 70 degrees, even on the coldest of days. And if I have two of these in here, it will be above 70 degrees. So I'm going to show you how to put this together. It's super simple. Now the first thing you're going to need is a large type of can like this pineapple juice can. There's no sprayed in lining, it's all metal, and this will burn all night long until the morning. And of course I always recommend that you have safety device, detection equipment, carbon monoxide detector, fire extinguisher, and smoke detector. But this size can heat a room overnight for quite a long time, even in the coldest time of the year. So this can save my plants in my greenhouse. If you have a power outage, it could save you in that way. If you need a way to cook and you're on the trail, this will do the trick. If you're just trying to heat a small camper or a small space, this will do the trick every time. Sadly, we're going to have to lose the juice in this, and I'll tell you why in just one sec. So before I cut into the can, I want to talk just a little bit about the wicking action. We're using a very special material on the inside of this can that's going to make this wick properly. Now I will say that I haven't tried the paraffin lamp oil yet. I just don't think this is going to work better, but I am going to give you tips on the best fuels to use, the safest fuels to use, and what's going to work better, what will pull out more heat and what will put out more light. So when we drill into this can, I'm using a step bit, and unfortunately I'm not going to be able to save the juice in here. Now I suppose you could take a knife and then cut it open and pour it out and then reseal it with this special sealant I've got, but I'm just going to sacrifice in the juice to this can because I want to make sure that there's only one opening, and that's where our copper device is going in. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to make sure that we're touching the bottom, because we're going, like I said, we're going to have a wicking action that's going to go from the very bottom, so we'll use the entire amount of fuel. You want it coming out of the top of your can a couple of inches, so we're going to mark that. And then we're going to cut it, and I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to cut it. If you don't have a power tool, you don't need it. You can use something as simple as a hacksaw, or you could use a cutting device. This one's probably too small. I need one that's slightly larger, and so this pipe cutting tool will easily cut into the pipe. Really simple. If you do have a power tool that cuts copper pipe, then you don't need either one of those. You can just make a quick cut in it. Also remember that there can be some sharp edges, so you might want to take some sandpaper and go around the outer edge to make sure you don't have any little burrs sticking out that might cut your finger as you're working with it. All right, so this is super simple to do with this little pipe cutter right here. You just want to make sure that you're cutting the right spot. That's why I marked it with my marker. And so you're just going to open this up. I'll put a link in the description if you don't have one of these, and it's probably the cheapest route to go if you don't want to buy a power tool. But we're just going to make sure we're lined up there. There's a little cutting wheel right there. And so each time you tighten this down, you're going to get it pretty firm. And then you're just going to rotate your pipe slowly. And each time you do that, as you can see right there, it's made a small indentation in our copper. Tighten it down again and twist your pipe a second time. And if you twist it too much, it's going to be hard to turn unless you've got a very strong pair of hands. So just remember, if you can't turn the pipe, you can turn the device. You can see the cutting and the indentation there is a lot deeper. Just maybe one, maybe half a turn each time makes it a little bit easier. And it'll just pop off like that. As you can see, it's really easy to come apart. We don't want a big burr right there. What we want to do is, again, take our sandpaper and just run around the outer edge, that, and get away from any sharp edges. Now it's pretty good. I feel a little bit right there. I'm going to go back so you can see that right there. So we're just trying to make that smooth. There we go. Now no burrs sticking out. Now we have our outer piece, and we're going to cut another piece for the inside and use a very special material as our wicking agent. Now the next thing we want to do is of course we've cut our 3/4 piece of copper, and we want to make sure we mark the very center of our can there. So I'm just going to draw a line there, and that way we can use our step drill bit to know that we're in just the right spot and we don't cut larger than we need to. Now you can use a lot of different types of bits. I made this a very similar to one to this before, and it was made out of glass, and there was a lot of concerns that it was glass. So I'm going to show you two safety features of this. Obviously, we're using a can, so you don't have to worry about it tipping over and breaking. Of course, you still have the open flame, so always be careful when you're dealing with the open flame. Also, on these step drill bits, you want to make sure that the hole matches up your size right here. So this is a little bit too small, so I'm going to get a larger bit on these step drill bits. I'll put a link in the description if you don't have this type, but these are perfect for cutting into metal. They do a really good job and leave you with a really clean cut. Now this particular drill bit set I got on Amazon, and it's really a nice set. It comes with this really good case right here, and it makes it a lot easier than the second one I ordered. The second order just came in a small container, and it's really easy to lose it. But what we're trying to do is confirm that the bit we're using is nearly identical to the size of the outer piece that we're using. So we don't want to go larger because we're going to have to seal this once we get it into the can. So just remember, we want to try to match that size as close as possible. Now, as I said at the beginning of the video, you could make a couple of cuts on each side with a knife and drain the pineapple juice out of there, but I'm sacrificing the pineapple juice. It will not be drinkable because once you cut in this with this type of step bit, you're going to have small metal pieces go into the juice, so you'll have to dump it and you won't be able to use it. So if you decide you want to drain it, I'll show you a way where you can seal the can, but I'm going to just go the easy route and do it the lazy way. So I'm going to try to center this up right in the center. Not too much pressure, just lightly let the drill bit do the work. Just put just the slightest amount of pressure. It may be a little messy when you cut into it, so just remember that. All right, we have an extremely tight fit, and that's exactly what we want. We don't want there to be too big of a fit there. So as you can see, I'm going to get this to go into the can. Unfortunately, now our juice is ruined. We will have to pour this out because of the small bits and fragments that went in there. So just remember, don't drink this once you make this. Now we want to seal this where our copper pipe's going in, and so we've got a little bit of pineapple juice still coming off there, but I have cleaned out, washed it out, triple rinsed it, and then dried it. No moisture, no water inside of it because I don't want our fuel to be contaminated with water. I want it to burn cleanly. The way to seal this copper pipe that's going to be coming out of here is you can use JB Extreme Heat, which can take huge amount of heat, or the Quick Weld. Either one of these you can use because most of the heat is going to be above this. It's not going to be at the can level. So just remember, it's up to you which one you want to use, but it's a special type of epoxy that's metal reinforced, and it will seal this quite well. So there's one thing we need to do to this copper pipe before we put it into our heating or our fuel reservoir. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to help the wicking action go up the full length of this pipe. Now, as I said earlier, we have about 2 inches sticking out from the top. On the inside of the can, we want about maybe 5 different holes drilled on both sides of the copper to help with that wicking action. So let's drill some holes into this pipe. And again, I'm using a smaller step bit. I'd recommend using a pair of gloves because your hand's going to be really close to the drill. Now this is what I really like about those step drill bits, is they really do a good job of drilling the holes. There's no burrs sticking out, but you can take some sandpaper and run it down the full length of your pipe just in case you have some sticking out there. So this is really going to aid with the wicking action. I'm going to drill the opposite side, and then we'll go on to the next step. All right, so I've drilled both sides. No burrs sticking out, but again, let's take a little bit of sandpaper. And that's going to really make a difference with our pipe. Now there can be some coatings on these sometimes, so you can take your sandpaper and just do a thorough job all the way around and remove anything that might have been added to the outer part of the copper, so just in case. Now we may have to take a wire brush in there because there's a little bit of burrs on the inside, but not too many. But we have to be able to get our very special material inside of here, and that's a little bit of a task to do. So I just wanted to give you a quick glimpse before we move on to the next step of the different types of heaters I've experimented with. A lot of these, I've just studied them and tried to make them as efficient as possible, put out the most amount of heat as possible. So if you're interested in this type of material, I've got a lot of heater videos, homemade heater videos, do-it-yourself type of stuff. So just take a look in the catalog and you'll see a lot of these heaters. I've already made videos. A couple of them I have not made videos about, and that's upcoming. So let's get back to the next step. Now, this is going to be the exterior piece of copper that we're going to put into our can, and we need an interior piece, but we want this piece to be anywhere from 3 to 6 inches coming out of the top of this. And depending on what size flame you want, that's how you can judge it based on, if you just want a shorter type flame that you might be cooking on, you could do 2 inches, maybe even smaller, because you can keep the flame closer to the can so you can set up a type of device. I'll show you that real quick. You take some of these L brackets and you can either attach it with something as simple as this right here, a clamp. And so you just put that on there, put your L brackets in there, tighten it down, and then you can set any type of cookware on top of this. Not something oversized, but something close to this size, and you could actually cook on it. So what I'm doing today is I want to make this into a heater. So what we need to do is we need to measure maybe 4 inches above the top of our piece of copper, and that's where it's going to come to. And this interior piece is going to be wrapped with a very special material that's going to be our wicking agent that will never burn up. So this is really a forever type of copper candle. So I'm just going to maybe mark it right there, roughly about 4 inches, and do the same exact procedure with our pipe cutter. And this is really simple. It's how easy it works. I'm hoping I'm still on camera. It's so hard to do 3 things at once and be sure that you're still filming. So anyways, just tighten it down a little gradually, do a full 360, tighten it down a little bit more, do it again, and the more you tighten it, it will cut deeper into the copper. And there you go, this comes right off. And see, we got the wrong piece there. This is the piece that's going to be on the interior of our can. Now the way this is going to work is we're going to wrap this inner piece of copper pipe with carbon felt, and this looks like just ordinary material cloth, but no, it's actually something very special. This can take thousands of degrees of heat, receive directly a flame. It will not burn up, it will not disintegrate, and it will last forever. So what we're going to do is we're going to wrap the inner pipe, and this will have a wicking action. It will pull our fuel to the top and allow our flame to work very well. We'll be able to use all the fuel all the way down to the bottom because of this material right here. So carbon felt is a key component. Again, if you don't have any of this near you or don't have a hardware store that sells this, just look in the description. I'll put links to everything. Now I've cut a piece of carbon felt to go around our inner piece, and you can stretch it a little bit to thin it out. And what we want to do is when we put it in our lower piece of pipe, it's a little tricky here, so you have to really stretch it, pull it tight, and then kind of have this effect of spinning the outer copper pipe as you push it on, and just work your way to the top. So again, it takes a few tries there. It's not easy. It tends to want to bunch, so you just want to make sure that you make it as thin as possible and make it as easy on yourself as possible. So just pull it really tight till you get it completely surrounding your inside copper, and then just slowly push it all the way to the top. It's going to, like I said, it's going to take a few tries, but eventually you'll get the hang of it. Don't let it bunch on you. Just force it into the pipe and you'll find that it works great. Now I should have did a time lapse on this so you could see how I did this, but it just took a lot of effort. I had to pull this really tight, push down, and spin it as it went. So we wanted to make sure that the carbon felt runs up the entire length of this. So we're going to, this is your top right here, so we're going to have to clean this up a little bit with a pair of scissors. I don't want it sticking way up, but we're just using this as a wicking action. I'm going to clean it up at the bottom, cut around this base right here, just where it's lightly sticking out, and then you can see it as it comes all the way up. The carbon felt is in each one of our wicking holes there that will take it to the top of our forever candle inside of our metal container. Okay, so as I mentioned, we're going to clean this off, and it's okay for this to stick out just a little bit at the top, so you can have maybe as much as ½ an inch coming out of the top, no problem. You can kind of pull it a little bit tight there, clean it up. At the bottom, we just want it as close to the pipe as possible. So I'm just going to go around that. I'm hoping I'm on camera here. Clean that up at the bottom. And this entire component, this forever copper candle, the carbon felt will never disintegrate. It will work over and over. Just make sure that you pull it tight to make sure it's wrapped really well, because it's going to have that wicking action, and you can clean it up. And one thing I will say, when you first burn the carbon felt, you may see a little bit of the debris burn off. So it may not be a perfectly clean flame. You may see a little bit of smoke, but once it burns for just a minute or two, it's going to have a very clean burn from that point on. Now, what we want to do on this piece of copper that's sticking out right above our carbon felt, we want to drill a couple of holes on each side. So 2 on this side, 2 on this side, and that's going to help with the overall flame. It's going to make a hotter flame, and it's put a little bit of oxygen into the flame, so it's not just coming out of the top. So it will definitely help. We're going to try to do that where you can see it. Okay, first hole. Let's put our second hole in. Okay, flip it over. Try to make sure you're on completely the opposite side. All right, so there you have it. We have our wicking holes at the bottom, our oxygen air holes. It's going to add a little bit of oxygen to the flame, help with the heating and the overall working of the system. So there you go. That's the interior part of our can. I'm going to show you how to put this on and make sure we seal it properly. Now I want to talk just a sec. The type of fuel you're using this is what makes it really work well, is getting the right type of fuel. You can use any type of alcohol. I mentioned at the beginning of the video, I was thinking about trying some paraffin lamp oil, but I don't think that's going to work as well as the alcohol. So you can try it. It'll be your experiment. It'll haven't happened for the first time for me. So just remember, I can't guarantee that's going to work well. But what I will say is I do have a favorite. Any type of alcohol will work, but also a lot of times I get the question is, how long will this burn for? Well, that depends on purity of your fuel. If you have something like a 99% alcohol, it's going to burn cleaner and longer. This is what most people have in their home, is the 70 and 91%. That's very common. So if that's all you have, you can use that. But this is my favorite, is the denatured alcohol. It's actually made, the can itself says it's made for alcohol stoves and fuel burning type of appliances. So just remember, having a can of this in your camping gear, in your emergency supply, your prepper supply. So if you have a power outage, this is what I would want to have, and it's going to burn the cleanest and the longest. So that's a hard question to answer that I often get, is how long will it burn? That depends on fuel purity and how big the candle you've made. If you made it really large but have a very small fuel reservoir, of course it's not going to burn very long. So there's a lot of variables in making this. So just remember, I recommend the denatured alcohol. Again, as I said earlier, all the proper safety equipment is needed. The smoke detector, carbon monoxide detector, smoke alarm, and a fire extinguisher. I wouldn't do this without any of those four. And if you have pets or children, make sure you put this where they can't get to it. And I'll talk in just a little bit about the safest way to set this up in your house where you don't have to worry about it getting knocked over. Now, in the comment section, there's always talk about safety, and I think that's a good thing, to be extremely safe. You can take something like this, a larger stock pot, and put your inner can in there, your fuel reservoir everywhere, and fill it almost to the top with sand, and it's a lot safer. You don't have to worry about it getting knocked over. Somebody would have to take a running start at it to knock it over. So you could put this on top of a stove where it would naturally vent outside. If you have an unused fireplace, you could do that. Just make sure that you're following all the proper safety things. I can't say that enough, is doing proper safety all along the way of doing any type of open flame is just a prerequisite. You have to do that. Now what we want to do is we're going to have a really tight fit, so we just want to carefully kind of wiggle it in there, push it all the way to the base, and there we go. So we want to seal this with our JB weld. You can either use quick weld or the high heat, but as I said earlier, this area right here is not going to get super hot. The hotter part is going to be up here, and that's what's going to be putting the most heat out. But you can use the extreme heat, this product right here, but it takes about roughly 2 hours to completely cure, but the quick weld is just a matter of minutes. Now this one is just slightly different than the previous ones I used that were in the tubes. You had to manually mix it yourself. You just remove this cap, and it'll mix. It comes with a little stick here. You're just going to put this around the top of the can. We want to seal this off because we don't want any flames coming out of the base there. And so make sure we've got that mixed quite well. I'm going to probably put more than I need there because I just want to make sure that it has a good seal. And then take our little, what appears to be a small, like a miniature popsicle stick, and just mix the two together. It'll go from a black and a white to a gray. I know it's rather messy, but I just want to make sure I seal it properly all the way around so that once it's dry, we don't have to worry about any flames coming out of that area. We want the flames coming from the top of the can, top of our copper candle. So I think we're good there. We're going to give it about 6 to 10 minutes to dry, and then we'll be ready to move on to the next step. Now, one thing I've yet to do is to remove the label off the can. So we're just going to take a razor blade, carefully cut the full length of the can, and peel away. I think I hit right where the glue is. So, and also this is still a little bit wet from where I washed it, so it may be a little tricky to get off there, but I'm just trying to cut down and try to peel our label away. As I said, it's going to be probably a little bit of glue there, but that's fine. We'll have to remove that later. Actually, it came off pretty good there. But again, you can come back with some sandpaper and remove it completely. So that is the overall setup, but now we're going to fuel it up and do some heat test on it. And I'll talk about the different sizes you can make of this particular Copper Forever candle, heater, stove, and light. Now, in some of my previous heaters, there's been a very, very common question. It's like, how do you put it out? Well, this is very simple. You can blow it out just like a candle. The flame on this particular one is not hard to put out. Or if you have a metal can, you can put it over the top of it, something like a canister or something like that. You don't want to use plastic because this does get really hot here. So that's probably the number one question that I usually get. Now, how do you fuel it? Well, we're going to refuel it by putting a funnel in the very top. Hoping you can see that. And so we'll refuel it with that funnel. You can use any type of kitchen funnel, but remember, when you are refueling it, do it very slowly, and you need to probably put your fingers over this or cover it with a little bit of metallic tape because you don't want the fuel coming back out. I'm going to opt to use a little bit of metallic tape so I can refuel it. Another thing to remember, don't refuel this just after you've burned it because you want this to be cooled down. You don't want an accidental ignition from this being superheated. Now, I've just put some metallic tape on that, or furnace tape. Very sticky and it sticks to it very well, but just remember, we'll remove that once we're ready. We're going to put just fuel in it very slowly. Just remember, the key here is to do it very slowly and allow it to fill the canister or our fuel reservoir. Now, I've actually built this refueling funnel to make it really easy. I took some furnace tape, took just a standard plastic funnel, and I had a smaller piece of pipe that we can run down the inside just like that. And so that makes it really easy to refuel. So I can just slowly put fuel in the top. I don't have to worry about spillage. I don't have to use any tape. So this just makes it a lot easier to add fuel. Also, if you get something like this, this is a succulent and cactus feeder. You can use something like this to refuel. And so that makes it easier too if you're just doing small amounts at one time. But if you want to fill it halfway or maybe 3/4, then this type of funnel would make it a lot easier. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to light it with a kitchen torch. It makes it really easy to do. I would recommend doing this because if there's any vapors around there, you don't have to worry about burning your finger. You can just pull away very quickly. So just remember that you are dealing with an open flame. And once the wicking action gets to going well, I'll show you how big the flame can get. I'll need to cut the lights out in the greenhouse. Now, as you can see, the blue flame is really a clean burn there, but it's putting out quite a bit of heat. The wicking action has started. It's pulling the fuel from the reservoir up to the top. Right down here close to the can, it's not that hot at all. I can put my hand close to it, but when you get up here close to the top of the flame is quite a bit hotter. Now, as I said before, the number one question is always, how do you put it out? Well, just like a candle, just like that. Just like you're blowing out a Christmas candle. Super easy. You don't even have to cover it. You can relight it. There you go. As I said before, I wouldn't recommend using matches. I would use something like a kitchen torch like this right there. But as I said, the hotter it gets, the better the wicking action will work and the more heat you're going to get. Now, I've only put about maybe 5 to 6 ounces of fuel. We've had a solid 30-minute burn there, and it's really putting out a lot of heat in the greenhouse. And so depending on the size of can you're using, you could go up to something that you can easily empty out and then refuel it like this, have a much larger fuel reservoir. So just remember, you're only limited by the size of your fuel reservoir and how easy it will be to empty the can. Something like this pineapple juice was super easy to get out. So if you find a can that's really much larger, you could have multiple ports coming out of here. Instead of one flame, you could have 3 or even 4. Now I wanted to show you another thing. You could turn it into kind of a radiant heater, taking some of this stainless steel mesh, putting just a common tuna can on it, and then putting it on the top, and that'll help radiate more heat. So let's relight. Let's put this on there. Again, you have to be very careful because this is not permanently attached, but if you use something like I showed you earlier, the pipe clamp that tightens down, this will get really hot really quick and it will burn quite well, and that radiant heat effect will happen with the stainless steel mesh. So I'll put a link in the description to some of that stainless steel mesh if you decide you want to go with this slightly altered version of this type of heater. So as you can see, I've made a lot of different types of heaters, and something like this cold brew coffee filter I purchased off Amazon, you could use this, you could set it on there, that would heat up and radiate some heat out, so you have kind of a different effect there. But a lot of these will work quite well with this huge fuel reservoir. It'll put out heat for a much longer amount of time. We've only had a few ounces in there, and like I said, it burned for over 30 minutes. So filling the can to almost full will burn quite a long time. And to make it even safer, you could put it into a larger container filled with sand so you don't have to worry about it getting knocked over. But again, safety is always the most important thing. No, I changed out the fuel type. I let the denatured alcohol completely burn up, and then I put in some 70% just standard alcohol. And you can see the flame is not near as pure because you're getting more of a yellow flame, but this will work better if you're wanting to have more light in the room. Again, you need to make sure that you have a little bit more ventilation because this is not burning as pure as the denatured alcohol. So that's what I'm recommending, is that you make sure that you have proper ventilation. Now, I've tried a lot of different things. This utensil holder that I got out of my kitchen, I let that burn for a while and it put out some nice heat. It radiated heat out around it a little bit slower, so it really worked well. This thing got red hot. It's cooled down now to the touch, so we're safe to handle it. But there's so many different ways you can configure this, but main thing is having this larger fuel reservoir and the safety. Some people said that the last one I built, I made it using a mason jar, and they were afraid that it would fall over, break, and just explode. So this way, if it gets knocked over or something happens, if it gets superheated, the metal is not going to crack. It's just going to create a larger flame. So I would try this and make sure you use, as I said, all the proper safety equipment, glasses, gloves, everything to make sure that you're being perfectly safe. So if you like this type of content, I make a lot of videos in this type of area. Also, I do gardening videos, so a lot of different interests I have. I'm always creating some type of video on the channel, so I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe. If you have a question, I always put subscribers to the front of the list so I can get to their questions first. If you want to help the channel grow even faster, we have a Patreon that you can join up. There's some free PDFs, some purchased PDFs that you can purchase to learn new things there. Some videos that if you're a member there, you can see a video that you can't see on YouTube. So just take a look at that if you'd like to help the channel grow. Guys, I really appreciate you watching, and have a great day.